Let's do it, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Nice to see your lovely faces behind your screens. I started piecing this video together, because I started thinking about the idea of renting right now, and I was almost intrigued to go, are you better off just renting right now? Because we know right now that the housing market is nuts, right? And that housing costs, right, the price to buy a home, has been rising at an unprecedented rate. And for a lot of people, it's gotten discouraging, right? Like you're feeling either priced out, or like, you just can't, get something because it's so competitive, and you're just sort of tapping out. And there's a lot of people that are just starting to think, maybe not a lot, but I do think it's fairly common, that people right now are going, should I just rent something for right now? Just wait it out, just ride out this real estate storm for a little bit, rent, and then buy something when it cools off a little bit. And that's what this video is about. So the problem with that logic is that rents are rising at a massive rate too, right? And part of housing is just your monthly cost, right? And if housing prices are going up but rents are going up, you go, well, doesn't this kind of balance itself out? But look, rents are rising to the point of, I think this is what inspired it. I was reading an article about it was like a single mom, but she's a nurse, and literally she'd been priced out of renting in the city where she lived. And she's like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, right? And it is a common problem, right? So the alternatives, right, of course, are, hey, you could take on roommates and say, let's get a 3-bedroom apartment and put 3 people in it. Or you could maybe go live with family, right? If your parents still live there, maybe you could go live with your parents. The problem with that, of course, is you sort of hit a point in life where you're like, man, 30 years old and living with mom and dad, or, 30 years old, or got 3 roommates. I think if nothing else, you hit a point in life where I think you seek a little bit of privacy, and you're like, I don't want to live with my mom anymore. I'm 35 years old, or whatever the case may be. The other problem with rent is that you are not locked in at the number that you began your lease at, right? So your rent is going to constantly be climbing, typically year by year, or if you're on 6-month leases, then it's probably going to be climbing every 6 months. So 6 months. So the idea of rent control would be very appealing right now, which is just a prevention measure to keep your rent from continuing to go up. The problem with that is there's very few places that have rent control. I know when I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, there were certain parts of Santa Monica that were rent controlled. And I mean, it was kind of amazing because you would just see these, some people that have been living in the same apartment for 20 years, and literally they had no choice but to stay there because they were paying $500 a month for this beachside place. And they're like, if I ever move, I'd be completely priced out, right? So it creates a very weird cultural dynamic in certain neighborhoods with these old timers that it's an interesting vibe. So very few places do have rent control. But here's another form of rent control, and you got to stay with me on this, which is buying a house. Because if the point of rent control is to prevent your rent from increasing, well, that's exactly what a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is, right? It's a stop that's in place to say, hey, your housing cost is this, and it will not go up. So as rents are rising, your mortgage is locked in. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's locked in. I don't know what the fist is for, though. But that's what a mortgage is, right? Minus the property taxes and homeowners insurance that will go up over time. Not significantly, but they will go up. So even if you don't buy at a time when the interest rates are great, I still say buy if you can, right? If you have the option to. If you're like, well, look, I have enough money and I have enough monthly income to be able to buy a place, but the interest rates aren't the best, who cares? Buy a place. And this is exactly what I did. I bought my house and my interest rate was 4.5%. And that was pretty normal. Today, it would sound like a catastrophe, oh my God, and people would freak out. That was, that was in 2017 when I did that. And so what you do is you buy a house and your interest rate might not be the best, but you wait it out a little bit. And when the interest rates go down to 3% or wherever you can get them to, then you refinance. And when I did that, not only I built up enough equity to get rid of my PMI based on different metrics and stuff, but it wound up dropping my payment about $450 a month. which is significant. You buy probably 8 bottles of booze with that, So I mean, hey, I value $450. Don't worry, we'll talk about the booze, everyone. Don't you worry, we'll get there. But that's exactly what I did, right? So some people are thinking that the housing market is going to drop and they're just going to rent, right? It's going to be more affordable later. I'm just going to rent, wait it out, and then buy it. So my challenge to you would be based on what? Like, what are your indicators that say that the housing market is about to tank? Because some people are saying that. And I hear that buzz and I go, cool, where's your data? Like, what are you saying that? Like, you read some article on like Google or something about some person that said it's going to crash? Cool. Like, where's it coming from? Because from my lens, I just look at it logically and I go, look, all the buyers right now are well qualified. This is not 2007. It's not 2008 where just anyone could buy a house and it didn't matter what kind of buyer you were. You could just buy it. It's not that right now, right? We have stop measures in place to prevent that from happening. So everyone's qualified. And then you have basic supply and demand. You have very high demand, partially because of propped up low interest rates, creating very high demand. You also have very low supply. So supply and demand is in a place where you go, yeah, that's going to lead to a really crazy real estate market. About the only way to balance that out is to begin to raise interest rates. Even that, I think, is going to depend on where you live and what the economy of that area is in terms of what impact do those interest rates actually have on that local housing market. So these are just things to think about, everyone. I am rooting for interest rates to go up because we got to balance things out. It's wild right now. I brought you a couple videos on this lately where it's just like, man, sellers have way too much power and the power is going to their head. I deal with it all the time. Probably got to deal with it in about half an hour after doing these videos tonight. But we do need things to balance out. You may not be able to afford a house right now, in which case it is what it is. You got to rent something because you're like, I simply don't have the funds or the monthly cash flow in order to buy a place right now. But if you do, and you're just sitting around, you're like, it's gonna dip, I'm telling you, man, don't play that game. None of you are fortune tellers. If you are in a position to be able to buy something right now, my honest advice is do it, because we don't know what's going to happen. And as you're sitting around waiting, it's just going to keep going up, and the interest rates are potentially just going to, or definitely going to keep going up. So it's just like, dude, stop waiting. Just go. It's my honest 2 cents. So that's that. 2 quick plugs, and then we'll get out of here. One on Bourbon, one on an actual sales pitch I'm going to give you. But Eagle Rare is just fantastic. There's bourbons that are cheap and amazing, and then there's ones that are expensive and they're a giant letdown. This is the perfect cross section of you're absolutely getting what you're paying for and probably even a little bit better. There's probably $300 bottles that you could get where you're like, Eagle Rare is just as good as that, and these are about $80 a pop. Eagle Rare is fantastic. It really is about the perfect bourbon in my experience, in terms of like, you're not going to drink it every night. It's not a nightly. It's too expensive for that. But in terms of you're like, I want to have a nice drink tonight, or I want to celebrate. Eagle Rare is where it's at, everybody. So there's that. And then just a shameless plug, but Jacob Bromwell on the flask. These are fantastic. Like, I don't even drink from a flask that often, but like in terms of, just look them up, Jacob Bromwell. These are fantastic. That was not the sales pitch. However, quick plug, identity theft protection. I swear I'm not going to turn into like a cheesy car salesman on this whole thing, but it is a service that I thought about getting for a long time, because I'm just like, man, we're cruising the internet. Your identity's out there. Like, what happens? I mean, it is a real freaking life-altering problem when your identity gets hacked. It's a pain in the ass when your bank card gets hacked, regardless of your social security number or something like that. So we have a service called Aura. We'll link it down below, and they monitor all that stuff. It's actually really cheap. I've been using it. I've had the VPN running on my computer all day. I actually feel better, like going on online banking and stuff like that, because I got the VPN running, and it's got virus protection, all that stuff. $1 million insurance policy, pretty cool. That way, if you get hacked while you're on it, they'll cover damages up to $1 million. But I'll throw a link below to it. I'm not going to make it a whole long drawn out thing, but 2-week free trial. If you keep it after that, great. You get 40% off. If you get rid of it after 2 weeks, no worries. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all, guys. I have no feelings to be hurt, but I would recommend checking it out. Yeah, there you go. That's the end of that. So I hope you guys are doing well. If you need real estate help or anything, let us know. Hang out with your dogs. Be good to your dogs. Take them on walks, you know. Give them a good bone, like from an elk or something like that. Not cooked bones, but raw bones. You know, they like that kind of stuff. So anyway, you guys take care. We'll see you soon.